Imagine if the New York Yankees were told they could only spend the same amount of money as the Athletics. Or if every NFL team had exactly the same budget.
Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell!
That's essentially what Formula One tried to do. It's called the budget cap. And years later, teams are still accusing each other of cheating. Every season, teams search for even the smallest performance advantage. A redesigned front wing, a lighter suspension, a more efficient floor. If a new part made the car just 1/10 of a second faster, it was worth millions. The biggest teams could afford to develop new parts almost every weekend. Similar teams couldn't keep up. The gap continued to grow. By the late 2010s, some Formula One teams were spending well over $400 million a year chasing victories, while others were trying to compete with less than half that amount. Winning wasn't just about building the fastest car. It was about who could afford to keep making it faster. Formula One had a problem. So, in 2021, they did something almost unthinkable. They told Formula One teams, you have a budget. The sport couldn't survive if only the richest teams had a realistic chance of winning.
He's won this Grand Prix on 4 occasions. He's trying to take the lead from Charles Leclerc. Now with the help of DRS, out of the slipstream to the race lead for Lewis Hamilton.
So in 2021, they changed the rules. Beginning in 2021, Formula One introduced something the sport had never seen before: a spending limit.
Where the flip are you people spending money?
Of course, this is Formula One. Nothing is ever that simple. The budget cap doesn't cover everything. Driver salaries, the team principal salaries, marketing, traveling, hospitality, those aren't part of the cap either. Instead, the rules focus on what makes the car faster: research, design, manufacturing, wind tunnel testing, computer simulations. Basically, if it helps final lap time, there's a very good chance it counted. Which also means every dollar suddenly mattered.
Oh! And I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about this.
And in Formula One, when every dollar matters, every team starts wondering how everyone else is spending theirs. Of course, giving every team the same budget didn't stop competition. It just changed where the competition happened. Instead of asking, how do we build a faster race car, teams also started asking, how do we find more performance without technically breaking the rules? And almost immediately, the accusations began. One team brings a huge upgrade package, another team immediately says, hold on, how can they possibly afford that?
Attention Kmart shoppers!
Blue Light Specials are back!
A rival expands its factory, suddenly everyone's an accountant. Even hiring new engineers can become a talking point. Formula One teams just don't race on Sundays. They monitor each other every single day. Formula One teams spend almost as much time studying their rivals as they do their own cars. Because if one team finds a loophole, every other team has 2 goals: find it or get it banned. That's why you'll regularly hear team principals questioning how rivals are staying under the cap. Sometimes they're genuinely suspicious. Sometimes they're just trying to make the FIA take a closer look. Because in Formula One, the mind games are almost as important as the engineering. For the first year, everyone wondered if anyone actually crossed the line. Then, in 2022, it happened. One team had exceeded the budget cap. In October 2022, Formula One got its answer. The budget cap had finally been broken. The FIA announced that team was Red Bull Racing. The overspend wasn't massive, less than $2 million, on a budget of more than $145 million. But in Formula One, even tiny advantages can make a huge difference. Red Bull claimed the overspend came down to differences in accounting, not an attempt to gain an unfair advantage. The FIA ultimately determined that Red Bull had exceeded the budget cap. In the end, Red Bull accepted a financial penalty, and perhaps more importantly, a reduction in wind tunnel testing, a punishment that could affect not just one race, but the development of future cars. Today, every major upgrade, every new factory, every new hire is watched by rival teams. Because the budget cap didn't end Formula One spending more. It simply moved the battle from the factory floor to the accounting office. And if recent comments from rival teams are any indication, that battle is far from over. In Formula One, the fastest car isn't always the one with the biggest budget. It's the one that gets the most from every dollar.